So leading on from part one where I said I've had plenty of messages, part two is actually what happened to me in my experiment. So mine was a very unique situation. So mine was, one day I was walking home from a gym I was frequenting at the time, and I lived about, it was in the summer, I lived about 10 minutes away. So I was walking on and I had a gym backpack on over my arm, and I'm walking back, and I remember it clear as day. As I'm walking back, there's a snicket that goes between like a bunch of houses to the back, and it can take you around the entire, without having to do a big loop around the local area. You could cut through. And as I'm going past, I was in my own world, probably on my phone. In fact, I was on my phone like this, and I looked to the side, and I went, what have I just seen? So I put my bag down, and actually, it was like a cartoon. Like I saw something, I went, wait, what? And I went back, and when I went back to the snicket, there was a girl around, this tall, very short girl, and a man, much taller than me, who had his hand around her throat. I said, is everything all right? What's going on? Like, and the guy released her immediately. Said, yeah, no, what's wrong, mate? She was crying. I went, you all right, Flower? And he died. I went over, and the two of us engaged in a conversation. After engaging in this conversation, she informed me of that this individual was, she was of legal age herself, but that this individual was, and things to do with her past I won't put online. I walked her home, and then I went to I returned home myself. What then happened was several, maybe weeks later, I saw her again outside some local shops, and we began having a conversation, and I asked her how she was doing, and she told me that she'd seen the individual 7 times, and I said, well, look, you live 5 minutes away, it was walk, 5-7 minutes from me. I said, if you ever need my phone number, do this. And I said, but, I said, obviously, like, I might not be around, you know, don't lie upon me, but you can ring me at any time, blah, blah. Eventually, she added me to Snapchat, and the two of us began conversing in a conversation. Obviously, years ago as well. This is over 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. So the two of us began talking frequently, and going from there, she opened up about a lot of her situations, including when she was younger, telling me about an abusive household, an abusive past, and a certain individual who had taken her in almost a mother-figured way and forced her to sell through school. I asked her if she still had contact with this girl. She did. She informed me who she was, and it quite kind of shocked me because in the community of the area, she was seen as a goody two-shoes was the girl. However, her son was not. Her son had done a lot of different time for crimes and also for drug-related crimes, including selling to youth. So it kind of like, okay, it kind of makes sense now. So I spoke to her a bit more and asked her like that type of stuff she'd been made to do. The two of us had become friends. She opened up. The girl informed me that one of her best friends had died, and it was actually true. The article was online. He'd actually been murdered selling drugs for the girl who were forcing her to sell drugs when she was younger. After a period of time, she revealed to me she still tried to make her sell. Obviously not in the way she was doing before, because she's now a legal age woman, but in a different way. And she kind of like says, I was a mother to you, blah, 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 has her bag stuff up and weigh stuff up and just usual stuff. Anyway, the two of us eventually got extremely close. After a while, to cut things short, she told me she didn't want to do too much for the other girl. I helped her move in with her grandparents. She'd left the once, so I helped her move in, took everything upstairs, did all this. But to get a long story short, I also gave her recommendations for jobs, just tried to get her out so she could kind of like get away from these people. She told me her plan. But to cut a long story short, after the woman who was a stable in the area found out, she accused me of a great crime onto the youngster. She actually contacted the police, not the young girl. And obviously I was arrested. The young girl changed her story 5 times, and at different points she basically, the charges got changed multiple times. A lot of things went my way. For example, she claimed I initially started talking to her when she was underage. This was not 3 years off the actual time I'd actually met her, which was fantastic for me because I didn't live in the area 3 years ago. So by doing this lie, I could say, well, I didn't even live anywhere there. I was over here. I'd never met her. So they had to interview the girl. She confessed this was a lie. So obviously under the influx, she had to change the story to, again, it was when I was legal age, but I just turned and I met him at, again, this was fantastic for me because I did not own any properties in that area at this time. And again, I still didn't live there. So then she thirdly denied it happened almost 3 years later, but the story changed dramatically, as you'd expect. to which case, just to make things thin, they said, well, has there ever been anything sleeping with you? And this is the part where I thought, well, it's just going to turn into, she says I've done something violent, you know. It's the only thing she has left to throw. But the story's changing so much. My solicitor said this because I've never seen so much of a farce. He goes, it's quite clear it's lies now. He goes, even, you know, he goes, when did this happen? Well, it happened 4 years ago nearly. Oh, actually, no, it happened 2 years ago. Well, actually, no, it happened 6 weeks ago. You know, it was changing like this. So it was just bollocks. So, like, going through the situation, I'm like, yeah. On the final interview, the police said, so what happened? And literally, she goes to the situation of, oh, well, we're sleeping together, and Chris had me in a doggy style position, blah, blah, so I'm listening, telling, she goes, and I'd had an orgasm about herself, and they went, okay, what happened? She goes, when I went, oh, I'm a bit sore, and they said, what did Chris do? And he goes, oh, do you want me to continue? So I thought, this is where it's going to turn nasty, obviously, even though things, and she goes, I said yes to him. They said, okay, what did he do? He goes, well, he went twice, and I went, oh, no, it does hurt. So they said again, what did Chris do? And the officer, showing what a scumbag she was, despite the fact it was clearly a lie, she's like, what did you do then? Like she wanted something bad to happen, not like, oh, what happened then? And she goes, oh, he pulled out and said he didn't want to hurt me. Yeah. So obviously the situation became unravelled as the massive lie it was. But during this time, a lot of truths were found out about people in general. Like, this was a person that I had gone out of the way because I'd seen them getting assaulted on the side of the road. And to show you where a good act of kindness can turn so rapidly. So that is why it's so common. Now, what makes it disgusting is it's almost now at 5, it might have even got there, out of 10 cases that go to court on a great crime against a man, the woman is lying. That's nearly half. Now, this doesn't mean that half reported the lies. What it means is the ones that actually push for it and go to court are lying. And the reason for this is most victims of such a heinous crime, or when something happens to them, feel embarrassed even though they shouldn't. They feel ashamed, they feel awful, they've got family, don't want people to know. So they're not attention seekers, they're not lying. So they end up keeping it in and suffering in silence, where that's what the real victims do, where the people like her are either influenced by outside sources or they think they're going to get money. I've seen girls who generally say, oh, go get thousands of pounds, you don't get that off them. Or they're doing it for attention. And it is an evil thing because it allows real victims and real women to suffer to such a large and super degree. But anyone else who has suffered like that, feel free to send me a message and I'll always do my best to help you. Either way, because it is an horrendous situation and something that this country really needs to do to change the laws. There is literally, in the United Kingdom, we're one of the only countries that a woman's word is law. And a lot of people don't understand the next part I'll do in the next video, which I'll get into of why it is just ridiculous.